Iată este Pelletier Yenishe, Moidish Kijni initially, Billigana Bushchin, Kina Chini Dashache, Billigana Dashanale. Welcome back to Res Ball. We finally are sitting down to record the Pistons off-season grades, talk about everything that's happened. We're going to just rapid fire these, so let's get into this right about now. Andy, let everybody know where they can find you online before we get started here.
You can find me on Twitter at D_D_Pistons_fans.
So we were waiting to record this because I was like, you know what, Andy, whenever Jalen Duren signs his contract, then let's give it a grade because that's going to be the final thing. It seems, maybe they give him the big money. Maybe it ends up being a sign and trade. Well, it's July 17th, 2026, and Duren still has not signed his contract. If you don't know, so that's a big reason why we've talked about it. And we're just going to rapid fire go through each of the offseason moves so far and give them a grade. Well, first we'll give our initial reaction. Say, what was your initial reaction to the move? We'll give a grade for it, and then at the end of it, we'll say, well, now that some time has passed since then, it's because some of these, it's almost like been a month for some of them. Like now that time has passed a little bit. Like, has your thoughts on it changed at all? And then at the very end, we'll talk about the ongoing Jalen Duren contract negotiations, which there's been a lot of talk about. So, ready for the first one, Andy?
Sir,
I believe the first move that was announced from the Detroit Pistons was signing Kevin Herter to, what was it, a 3-year, $27 million deal, 3 years, 9 million each, right? What was your initial
that's
reaction to old Red Velvet getting his contract coming back?
my initial reaction was I was swearing. I was swearing out loud, and I was wondering what the hell they're doing. Um, and if you want to convince me that somehow he's a good locker room guy or he's just a good player, actually, you can't convince me. You're not going to because we saw him at the end of last season. We saw him in the playoffs. You know what? He was a trade that we made to move up in the draft. Fine. That actually, the pick swap worked out. Good job. Happy about that. Other than that, I do not understand why they're bringing him back. My only logic is this was somebody that JB wanted back, that he fits the role of whatever Karis LeVert was doing, which I still haven't figured out what his role was. But JB wanted a veteran for that role, and he knew he was going to be losing LeVert, so they had to get Herter, which I don't know if there was anyone else they were going to have to outbid for his services. So I don't understand why it would be 3 years with 2 years guaranteed. I mean, maybe you could do 3 years, only 1 year guaranteed, like we'll talk about for Collins later. Like that would make sense. But Herter's deal made no sense to me.
Man, when a guy shoots 29.4% from three, and that's supposed to be his main skill, you got to bring him back, right? And then all that playoff contribution where he just got hurt and then did nothing. No offense to the guy, but that's another thing, an indicator of like, oh, don't pay this guy. And you're right, 9 million is an absolutely ludicrous thing to sign a guy who I just said 29.4% from three. That's supposed to be his main thing. Was hurt in the playoffs, couldn't contribute there, and has been a declining 3-point shooter the last 3 or 4 years. What are you doing? And what are you doing for this being your first move? I think that's the big thing for me is like really like it wasn't John Collins. It wasn't trying to get Duran contract. It wasn't like trading for Isaiah Joe or things that like do really matter. It was this like you just had to get this out the door. Yeah, like you just said too, who in the world is going to sign Kevin Herter for anything other than a veteran minimum? My initial reaction to this, I mean, besides all that, was like, oh, we're in for a terrible offseason, huh? This is the first thing. Like, this is your big announcement out the gate after winning 60 games, and everybody's saying, oh, they need a second scorer. Like, no.
The timing of it is what really makes me give it like an F minus, if that's even a thing,
Yeah, F
because
minus for me too.
the
Yeah.
timing is like I, so random and bizarre. Even right now, at this moment, I'm like, not having that $9 million on their books gives them more options. than had they not. So the timing of it makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I think we can say both F minus, and I think we can also say, has your opinion of it changed over the last month? And to me, I'm like, actually, it has. It's made me more angry. And the longer it's gone on, the less this makes sense, the stupider it seems, and the more you think about it being the first move, and now having no Jalen Duren, now having no second scorer, now having Tobias leave, now in the next move we'll get into trading away Stu, like it again, it's infuriating. A guy who couldn't contribute, a guy who can't knock down threes. Well, why? Why is this the first thing? F minus, whatever is lower than an F minus, the worst curse word you can think of. It's such a stupid move. Speaking of stupid moves, the next thing the Pistons did was trading away Isaiah Stewart. Andy, what was your initial reaction to trading away Isaiah Stewart?
Um, I I thought this was going to happen. I thought he was going to get traded. Um, and same thing with like Karis LeVert getting traded. And the main reason that I saw Stu getting traded for me was minutes. JB's never given him a ton of minutes. And with how B-ball Paul has played in the playing time that he got.
This is your initial reaction. There's too much thinking going on here, Andy.
Oh no! I mean, I wasn't surprised at all because I just think 15 million versus I think B-ball Paul's 5 million, and that gives them 10 million to play with without them seeing like there's a huge drop off. So I wasn't like shocked or anything. I was expecting him to get traded for nothing. That wasn't expect like second round picks. I wasn't expecting that, but I was expecting him to get traded.
Yeah, because you know Trajan Langdon just loves using those second round picks, right, and playing the guys from the second round. So if you're out there and say Stu didn't get traded for nothing, he did get traded for nothing. Picks they're never really going to use, and for players they're never really going to play. Bobby Clemens already out the door. I know there's been stories about Chaz being like, oh, you know, he's improving or whatever, but how's he going to find his way into this rotation with our guy Kevin Herter already getting JBs? You know, there they drafted Abuka Corey. Isaiah Joe comes in, John Collins. We got a SAR still here. We got Kate still here. Like we're talking somebody who's like maybe fighting for the 11th man with Chaz Lanier. So part of why in the Stu trade I hate it so much too is just like really you're trading him for these picks that you don't value at all. Again, F minus. I hate it. And my initial reaction stays the same because this is somebody that was Isaiah Stewart top three in rim protection the last 2 years. I mean, he was better than Victor Wembanyama at times during the season. Every time they played at major minutes, he made a big difference in that Orlando series. His rim protection and defense was a big thing that sparked a lot of the comebacks and helped in those defensive rock fights. And then he got treated like a jabron in the Cavs series. Now via Hunter Patterson and the Athletic, we're starting to hear some things about tension between JB. Apparently, Jared Jack and Isaiah Stewart got into it, and it's a big reason why the minutes aren't there too, and why he just didn't show up so much in the Cavs series on the court. The thing that makes me angry too is when you say, "Well, they looked at it and there's no difference between B-ball Paul's production and Isaiah Stewart." Like, yeah, who else was B-ball Paul in there for in the Cavs series because he wasn't producing?
Jalen Duren, our
Yeah,
expensive
how come
son.
that discussion doesn't come up also? It's like, yeah, you're right, B-ball Paul didn't produce the same or outproduce Duran, but he also, I mean, Stewart, but he also outproduced your freaking starter and the guy that you're apparently, just needing to keep and not wanting to sign or trade anybody, Jalen Duran. That part of it makes me really mad too. And the thing about it, the further it's gone on now, it would be one thing because I was like, okay, maybe they're moving their salary, because they're going to trade somebody. They need that cap space, somebody they're going to either sign or bring in. Again, it's been over a month. Nobody else has come in. It's like, okay, so you're clearly just wanting to get rid of the guy. He didn't ask for a trade. You're the one trying to dump him. And this will be something that comes up. I'm like, it seems that this offseason, the Pistons are saying we choose JV Bickerstaff over everybody else. I don't know if they're choosing him over Cade Cunningham, but it's definitely with the Hunter Patterson report of Stu and JB butting heads. number one thing of like, oh, here it is. JB doesn't like him. They have tension, so let's get him out of here. The Kevin Herter, Karis LeVert thing that you just brought up of like maybe JB wants this guy in this role again. That's probably another indicator here of, hey, we want JB wants this guy. He trusts him, so let's bring him back because apparently there's nobody better than him. They think. So yeah, the Stu trade is just stupid. It will never make sense to me. This is somebody that could legitimately be a defensive player of the year candidacy, right? If they played at major minutes, right, Andy?
So I agree with that. Um, the the trade moving Stu doesn't bother me that much because I thought he was going to get moved. Um, Moving him for the picks and then using picks to move up in the draft essentially for um, Ibuka, which is going to be another move that's coming up. Um, that I'm not a fan of using the picks for that. Like personally, like we've talked
Well, I mean,
before.
if they're not going to use them anyway, they might as well do that. I'll at least defend that. I'm like, at least know who you are. If you're like, okay, I'm not going to use these anyway, let's just do it for this.
But for me, it's like I would have loved to have used that trade to get another late first round, which you probably wouldn't get, but an early second round pick this year. Because there's quality guys who played pretty well in summer league that it's like I would have loved to have two two late first round picks or one late first round, one early second round. But because at that time in the draft, unless you're really good, you're still like throwing darts. Where it's like, you know what, give me some multiple options here, and maybe one of them will turn out. I just don't like the idea of going in on a smaller guard being one of your bets, just because it's a low probability bet in my opinion. But we'll stay back on track. Like so with Stu, I don't think with JB he was ever going to get the opportunity to become what he could be. So I'm happy for him that he gets moved in a way because I don't think JB was going to do much more with him.
Final thing on Stu and why I hate it, and the further it goes on, it's like, yeah, the only thing to respond to this is with hate. Every commentary team, from Blaha and Special K to those maniacs in Charlotte who go bananas over everything, every commentating crew, what do they say about Isaiah Stewart? He is the what to the Pistons.
The heart and soul.
So you trade your heart and soul away for 3 second-round picks.
They didn't think he was the heart and soul. That's what it comes
Ridiculous.
down to.
Yeah, I mean, I could spend the whole 2 hours, hour and a half, whatever, just on how stupid this Stu trade is. It makes no sense to me. We wish you the best of luck, Stu. We're still rooting for you. Hopefully, you do get in defensive player of your candidate and get in a coaching staff that does allow you to shoot threes and do other things with your game that we saw.
I
And
would
just
I would
brief
love
glimpses.
I would love to see him jack up a bunch of threes and then, get a really nice contract for his next one because they're like, oh wow, he's actually a stretch big. Like, oh wow,
Who
who could have guessed?
knew? Wow, you could play him at the 4 too, right? It's just be like, oh my gosh, guys. Let's move on before I get mad. You just talked about it. In the draft, the Pistons used those 3 second-round picks to move up to number 17 to draft Ibuka Okore, guard out of Stanford, to give you all a little, taste of Ibuka if you haven't been watching Summer League too. He's about 6'2", in shoes, probably like 185, somewhere around there. Does have like a 6'8" wingspan, somewhere around there. Is more of a scoring guard, can pass, but isn't really like a pure type of point guard. I mean, at Stanford, he carried the load there. They didn't really have anybody else on that Stanford squad that shows a lot of NBA talent. And Stanford, like nobody thought they would go anywhere this year, but he definitely kept them in contention, had them winning games. Abuka Corey was first team all ACC because Stanford is in the ACC now. First team all ACC guard, which is ridiculous because that conference is just loaded from top to bottom. And he's a freshman, so it's not like he's this 4 year guard coming out of here, unheralded recruit. So just a lot of skill, being able to get into the paint, can shoot some. It's not his number one thing. A little bit of a slow shot. Probably going to be a 3 level scorer eventually down the line. The comp that has been given to him that I definitely agree with is from Sam Vecini, who said there's a little Dennis Schroeder in his game. And I'm like, yeah, I definitely can see that because Schroeder can shoot, right? But his main thing is getting inside and getting paint touches. He's quick, but he's not like the most athletic or fastest guy, below the rim finisher. And again, you know he's a point guard and he can pass, but it's not really like his number one type of thing. So, Andy, what did you think of the drafting, moving up and drafting Abuko Kore in the draft?
It's not a knock against the kid because I think he's solid. I think he's a
No, let
solid
her rip
pick.
because I'm going to say really negative things. Not
I,
about Abuko, but
I mean, I think he's a solid kid. I think it's a solid pick. However, I'm not using draft assets to move up to draft an undersized guard. I'm not going to do that, especially when like Carr is still on the board and there's other players that I thought would have been a good fit that you can get those
players we
players.
thought would have been a good fit were on the board, Andy. That's the problem.
Yes, there were so many good options available in my so again, my kids heard me like yell out a swear word because it's like when I heard that the trade happened, it was like, oh, the Pistons moved up and they grabbed him. I was like, what? Like with the players that are still on the board that I thought would have been really good fits for the Pistons that they could have got without using second round picks to move up. That's the part that I'm like, I don't like this. I mean, honestly, it's not much different than when we got Sasser and when Weaver used picks to move up to get him. It's like they moved up because they wanted to get their guy, and then I forget. Maybe it was the Memphis Grizzlies that were the team that like traded their second round their late first round pick like two or three times and accumulated like four or five second round picks and still got the player they wanted. It's like, oh, you mean that's how you're supposed to do things? Like, so I'm I'm fine with the pick because it addresses a need. I do not like the process of how we got there.
Yeah, for me, this is a classic case of love the player but hate the fit. This is a terrible place for Ibuka Corey to end up in for one big reason, Andy. You know what that one big reason is? It has two letters.
Um, and since you said two letters, now I'm thrown off. I was just gonna say because we don't have many shooters to help space the floor for him.
Not that I mean, I will give him this even that he's because he just carried the load. Like I said, there wasn't really anybody taking pressure off him. Ibuka still shot 35% from three on a significant volume. So to me, I'm as a draft evaluator, I'm like, if you're the guy carrying the load, you have to take like 60 to 70% of your team's shots, and you have to generate like 80% of the points scored and you still maintain average efficiency from three. So for Ibuka, it was like 35%. I'm like, to me, that indicates the shooting's probably better than we think because when you are surrounded by other NBA talent, and at least with Cade Cunningham here and a Duncan Robinson and now an Isaiah Joe and John Collins, it's like, okay, these are guys that have to be guarded. So I think the shooting could improve there. But the big thing to me is the two letters JB. I understand people are excited about Ibuka. I get it. The upside is big. I know Schroeder is the player that I comp him to, um, you know, but I know that's not like exciting for a lot of people. But we got to remember too, Schroeder when he was on the Hawks was viewed as like their number one guy, pretty good scorer and all that. It's just the size gets in the way, and he's still been in the NBA a long time, still getting jobs, right? Still been on a bunch of different teams, gotten paid at times, been a league guy, come off the bench, do all these different things. So I do think Ibuka is going to do that. But why I bring up JB with him is who is the rookie that JB has played the most since he's been here?
The rookie that he played the most since JB was has been here. JB doesn't like to play young guys.
Exactly. And what's the problem with playing a point guard, rookie point guards?
Oh, they make mistakes, they make turnovers, they have a hard time, and then the coach yanks them, and then they don't get to learn how to play the game.
Yeah, again, just go look at how JB has treated Ron Hall in these last 2 years. And then the other rookies, right? I just brought him up and now I can't remember. Is it on Bobby Clement? Bobby Clement didn't even get a chance at anything, right? And then the other one is Chaz Lanier. Again, Chaz didn't get a chance at anything there. And if you want to say Dennis Jenkins had to earn and fight and claw his way into everything. And it was only because of injuries and Ivy's breakdown and everything that he got inserted into the lineup. So my question to you all, if you're saying like, oh, Ibuka's going to be in the lineup and whatever, why would JB treat him any differently than all the other rookies that have been on his team? Again, Ron Holland was the number 5 overall pick, and JB has treated him like a jabroni at times. Can't trust him in the playoffs. Like, oh, let's have 4 or 5 games where he plays like 10 minutes total. Why is JB going to play a rookie point guard who is going to make mistakes, who is 19 years old? Why is JB going to play him on a team that just won 60 games that is expecting itself now to take the next step to try to get to an NBA Finals? Again, that's why I say I like the kid. I see the potential in that stuff. The situation reminds me a little bit of like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who was drafted by the Pelicans, but it wasn't until he bounced around and then ended up on Minnesota where he finally found his calling because they figured out how to use him. He was on the final right team, who wasn't like being like, you need to be a point guard, you need to be a point guard right away kind of thing. So I do think with Ibuka, it's probably going to end up being something like that, where it's like maybe the next team is here. And beyond the JB thing, Ibuka Corey is probably going to be in the second unit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who is the other guard in the second unit?
Dennis Jenkins?
And who is the other guard, technically, maybe in the second unit?
Isaiah Joe?
Do any of those guys weigh 190 pounds?
No.
Can any 2 of those guys play together?
I think we're going to see 2 of them playing together this season. But the question would be, can you play 2 of them together?
And the biggest question, how does this help Cade? Do you want an Ibuka and Cade lineup eventually down the line where, again, Ibuka could improve on defense down the line? Right now, this guy dies on every single screen. He sucks on defense. Again, an undersized point guard, like you said, it's why you say I don't want to invest draft capital in it. It would be different if this was somebody like Deuce McBride from the Knicks. It would be different if he was somebody like Jose Alvarado or Fred VanVleet. We ain't looking at the guy. Again, Schroeder's the comp because Schroeder is like that still now, right? The diminutive frame, skinniness. He just has a hard time on defense. Maybe Ibuka becomes the pest that Schroeder is, to where he ended up getting a bunch of steals and stuff and kind of tries to make up for it in that regard. And it's just this gnat that annoys people and gets in their head at times. But right now, as a rookie, again, he just dies on every single screen. To me, like the Ibuka and Dennis thing, like that just seems like a non-starter. You know, both guys need the ball. And the thing I hate the most about this is, again, whose team is this? It's Cade Cunningham's team. Everybody knows that, right? The last thing you want to draft is another ball-dominant player. And that is the big thing with Ibuka. Over 30% usage at Stanford. He needs the ball in his hands to develop. He needs the ball in his hands to succeed. I just do not get the idea behind this of, even if it's in the second unit, why are you going to play 170-pound Dennis Jenkins next to a 180-pound Ibuka Corey, and then you have 170 maybe Isaiah Joe out there? The recipe for disaster playing any of those 2 guys together. Forget ever playing 3 of those guys together. And then any one of those guys next to Cade is just asking for, hey, there's a mouse in the house, right? Pick on the small guy. And no offense to those guys, but none of those guys are exactly like stellar on defense. We love Dennis's fight, but he still gets taken advantage of and gets, taken inside, as we've seen his defensive field goal percentages there. I really don't know the grade I would give it to. I feel almost like this is one of those things where I'm like, I can't give it a grade because I would give Ibuka himself as a player like a B minus overall grade. Somebody 10+ year vet. Seems like he's always just going to have a knack for scoring the ball. Will eventually find his role coming off the bench, get a little bit better as a passer. Hopefully he can get better with steals or something on defense there to carve out a little bit more of a role. But again, for the Pistons, like this just seems like somebody who needs time to make mistakes and time to figure these things out. And he got drafted by a team that has no time for that.
So I'm going to be, you brought up a point that I hope it doesn't take us too far on a tangent because it's about JB and playing the young guys playing the rookies. Um, until the playoffs, when we got behind with Orlando, like there was a game that I think Asar only played like 26 minutes or whatever, and he wasn't in foul trouble. And then after that, he played a ton of minutes. Like then it's like he. But I wonder if JB was basically told Asar needs to be on the court. Like, I understand you're the coach, but Asar needs to be on the court because throughout the regular season, JB still shorted him his minutes. Like, he should have been playing more minutes. And then we're going to give him this big contract coming up, hopefully. And that guy's got to be on the court 30 plus minutes a game, like every game for the money he's going to be making. But JB, like, until the playoff run, JB didn't even play Asar, which makes no sense at all. And so I bring that up because I'm curious to see, starting the season, if Ibuka jumps Danis for playing time. Even if I think Danis would be JB's guy, but I think Trajan and other people want Ibuka to be playing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was gonna say you brought this up because this is why I give the move itself an F minus because it creates so many different weird problems. Dennis proved himself. He was maybe the third most important player in the playoffs at times. Like he could look like second most. No offense to Tobias, but there were some of the games where kind of Tobias went down, and then Dennis came in. I'm like, why are you creating this problem? Dennis just proved himself and somebody to hold on to, and it's not like he's asking for big money or anything there. This is somebody who knows your system, is already a veteran. You don't have to mold and rely on or mold and have that weird, awkward feeling out period. You have to live with the mistakes and stuff like that. Didn't kill you on defense in the playoffs like we all thought, or at least I thought he would, right? Like, what are you doing? This guy has proven himself to be part of the rotation, the Jose Alvarado's, the Deuce, that kind of a guy. Like, why draft somebody who's immediately like in his spot like that? And the other thing that makes me give it an F minus is the board. The board at that point, you draft a 17, then we got Christian Anderson, Alan Graves, Jaden Quaintance, Kareem Lopez, LeBaron Philon. Remember, you and I were like, LeBaron Philon will be long gone. He was still there. Zubia Giofor, Cam Carr, Sergio De La Rey, Terrace Reed. I didn't really like that pick. That one's whatever. Chris Sinak Jr., again, the guy I said probably should have been there. Josh Jefferson, Alex Caravan, Cole Pete. Like literally any of those other guys would have
And
been in a fit. Even the Cole Pete one, which I love the kid, but I would have hated the fit also. I'd have been like, okay, at least this is somebody that they could mold into four. It's the Tobias replacement that we wanted. Maybe it's not like right now, but in a couple seasons. And even after, if they drafted somebody like that and then they signed John Collins, it's like, oh, this is a smart move because you bring in a veteran who fills the role right now. He can mentor the young kid, especially with a co-op kind of thing. Collins didn't shoot threes in college, but now he's a reliable three-point shooter in the NBA. You can sit down and help him with that kind of stuff. But now, guess what? We still don't have a Tobias replacement, right? And he's gone too. That's one thing to think about this off season too. No offense to John Collins, but it's like he's not a long-term answer, and they don't think he's a long-term answer because they didn't sign him to a guaranteed deal beyond the first year either. So that's why, again, I hate doing this because this is not a knock against Ibuka. This is a knock against the Pistons drafting a guy who just seems like the coach is not going to trust. It gets in the way of a bunch of dudes on the roster and doesn't really seem to fit in the long-term, projection of what you want the team to, you should want the team to be. And the rest of the board had a bunch of guys that fit perfectly with what you needed or what could have turned out to be a second scorer, like a Cam Carr kind of thing.
I think it shows what they think of Danis in terms of I think their expectation is that Ibuka is going to clear Danis, that he's going to be better. He's younger. He has the room to grow, but I do, because Danis was important for the Pistons last year. He was huge, and my problem is, like looking, and this sounds like a shot at Danis, but that's not how I mean it to come across. But it's like, there's no way that guy is supposed to be this important for the team. Like, that shows you your team has some serious flaws and weaknesses. So I
Yeah,
understand
and so
where they're
many.
drafting. You know.
Yeah, and sorry to cut you off, but so many people made the observation that the only reason Dennis is so important is because he's the only other guy that could create a shot.
Mhm.
And again, it just pointed back to the idea of like you need somebody else that can create a shot, which is probably the thought behind the Ibuka Corey. But again, how often does a rookie come in and do that? How often does a rookie point guard do that? And how often have we seen a JB Bickerstaff coach team rely on a rookie when the goal of the team is to try and get to an Eastern Conference and an NBA Finals? So the next one, the Pistons traded into the second round and got Ogano Onyensu from Virginia. Made his rounds throughout college. Started at Kentucky on Yensu, then went to Kansas State, and then finally finished out his career at Virginia. Really defensive specialist, shot blocker, like an okay rebounder. Not going to score a lot of points here for you, but really it is like a shot blocker. In his last season at Virginia, Ganyan Yansu had 2.9 blocks per game. And this is a dude that block percentage numbers are pretty bananas. They've been in the 15% for freshman, 15% for sophomore, dipped down to 8% only, quote unquote, as a junior. And then as a senior at Virginia, 17.4% block percentage. Those are ridiculous numbers. I mean, anything over like 5% block percentage is good. Anybody in the 10% is bananas. So, do you have any thoughts on Ngani? I know it's the number 53 overall pick. Like, this is not a very highly celebrated and touted guy. So, if you don't have any thoughts, I understand.
My thoughts were I was happy that they traded back into the draft to select another player because like earlier I said I really wanted them to get two, even though when you're selecting that late in the second round you really are just taking a flyer on someone. For me personally, I would have hoped like did Sinek Jr. did he go to Boston? Is that where he went?
Yes, unfortunately, he did.
Yeah, they're smart. Okay, Boston is smart, and it's like for me, I would rather have not used my draft capital to move up to get Ibuka, taken who was available at 21, and then tried to use whatever second round picks you needed to go get Kristanek Jr. and have him been your like project big that you want to work on for the future. But that's all fairy tales now.
Yeah, and Yansu's a very limited player, and I forgot to give the measurements on him. So I got on Yansu 6'11" without shoes on, so he's probably like 7 feet in shoes around there. 236 pounds, and then a 7'4" and a 3/4 inch wingspan, so like a 7'5" wingspan. This is a big dude we're talking about. Again, I am so sorry if Ogani Yansu ever hears this. I don't dislike you. I don't think you're untalented. However, for me in draft space, I'm of the mindset that like if you draft somebody that is an outlier in some way, shape, or form, you have to be able to make a reason for like, oh, I understand this is here in his profile, and I understand like this is bad or this is good. And again, you got to give a reason for it. Why bring this up? I just said Ogani Yansu, 4 years in college, stopped at 3 different universities, has played in 100 games over those 4 years. How many games of those 100 has Ogani Yansu started in his 4 years in college, Andy?
Oh, just random guess. I'll go 20.
16. How many of those 16 starts in 4 years and 100 games came this year in Virginia?
0?
Zero. Those 16 starts came Kentucky his sophomore year and then two last year as a junior at Kansas. Again, I'm sorry, Onyensu. I'm rooting for you. But the outlier, like I said, the outlier. Name me another successful player in the NBA, even off the bench, who wasn't a consistent starter on any of their teams.
I got nothing.
Yeah. Again, it's the 53rd pick. I don't really remember what they gave up to like get back into it. Maybe hopefully it was just like cash considerations or whatever. But to this is somebody that would be undrafted, right? again, barely started any games. I know he's a really good shot blocker, but not a scorer. Rebounding doesn't stand out to be like, oh man, this is a dude we got to prioritize, because rebounding is a big thing that a lot of enemy teams will look at and prioritize and draft guys just because they're a good rebounder, like an Enrique Freeman kind of thing there. I think Quincy Evans was like the most famous one of like the undersized rebounder kind of guy. So I don't get it. I don't get it. Like, this is something you feel like you have to do. Draft a guy that couldn't even start on his last year on his squad, and the only real thing that stands out is shot blocking. It just seems very narrow sighted to me in terms of putting some. And I don't want to oversell it because it's a second round pick. They're worth something. That's all I'll say, right? You have to give up something, especially since they didn't have it in order to get it. And it's just like, why? You have to account for that. It's only 16 games in 4 years. And the summer league, again, summer league, not like he's made a big splash. I know summer league like doesn't really matter. There have been a ton of guys that just poo-pooed in summer league, including Victor Wembanyama, Jalen Brunson, a bunch of guys, right? But still, I don't get it. I do not get this one. Very limited player, and again, wasn't even a starter for his squad. So I don't get it, man. Maybe I'll abstain from giving it a grade again. I don't want to diss on the kid, but I just don't understand the move. Well, let's get some positive stuff now, though. So the next move the Pistons did make was to trade for sharpshooter Isaiah Joe. What was your initial reaction to that, Sandy?
A plus, excellent.
Yeah, I don't think we have much to say on this. I mean, Isaiah Joe is just a flamethrower here. Him and John Collins. I'll repeat this when we come up with John Collins. I watched maybe like 50 of their games now, just them. I don't drink anymore, but I always think of like drinking games to come up with certain ones. And I'm like, you would stay stone cold sober if you had a drinking game of like anytime John Collins or Isaiah Joe takes more than two dribbles, take a shot. Like through those 50 games, I think you would still stay sober. They don't waste motion. Like, they don't put the ball on the deck. They are play finishers for sure. Collins with dunks and from threes, and Joe mainly from three. Because I was trying to see him like, oh, maybe he can be the second scorer. Because I definitely remember him in college, Isaiah Joe at Arkansas. He had some bananas 3-point attempt rate and some like wild shooting and shooting efficiency numbers. That when it was like Steph Curry levels, and it's no wonder that he found his way in the NBA and still a really good player even off the bench at his size. So yeah, this is exactly the kind of guy we need. I don't care how bad the defense will be with Duncan and Isaiah Joe together. I'm like, just put Cade next to those guys. The only question that ought to matter every season with Cade Cunningham on the roster is, how does this help Cade? So Isaiah Joe is easy. He's going to finish everything that Cade kicks out to him. I mean, just a lights out shooter from three, can do it off the dribble, can do it off the catch, can do it off of movement. I seem the OKC kind of used him off movement a lot, and that's the one move this offseason that's got me the most excited, because I'm like, man, what they've already done with Duncan, and then if they can have another guy running around like that off screens, like that's a problem, and that really does pull gravity away from Cade. So yeah, A plus. My initial reaction's the same. Even thinking about it more, I think it's a fantastic move.
Yes, and even if they don't play much together, Duncan and Joe, I still just think, because I mean, last year we dodged a bullet that Duncan played so much, because when he didn't play, the team struggled because we had no 3-point shooting. So just now imagining what our bench looks like having a 3-point shooter, it's like, wow, like it's not just one guy, you know. And who knows, maybe even Chaz gets a couple minutes. Maybe we could try that. But very happy to have Isaiah Joe on board.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you could run a second unit with like Dennis, Joe, Duncan, Collins, and then whatever, like who cares about the defense at that point? Most bench units aren't built on their defense anyway, right? But that bench unit is definitely going to score between Dennis being able to get in, create on his own inside the paint and from the mid range, and then Duncan and Joe running around, and then JC, John Collins can do whatever, and Collins can play the five too. So they really do have a lot of flexibility with whatever that other position is there. If they want to play somebody else at the four, or do some bananas lineup with like Duncan at the 4, or maybe Asar is in there also. So yeah, the Isaiah Joe trade, fantastic. I think he'll be a great addition. And I'm already predicting like between 15 to 18 points per game. We saw it with Malik Beasley. We saw it with Duncan Robinson, and Isaiah Joe might be better than both of them. No offense to those guys.
Yeah, nothing more to
Like
add on that. Super happy.
so, time to bring the mood down. The next move the Pistons did was let Tobias Harris go. I think this is going to be a brief one. For me, it's at least a brief one. What was your thoughts on Tobias initially, and then now that you've had time to think about it?
Um, it's hard because I don't think you can talk about this team going from 14 wins to 60 wins without saying how important his role was. Forget the stats. How important his role was in making the change. You have to give JB credit because he was the coach, but Tobias was here when that happened, and so I will always give him credit for being responsible for like changing the culture, the atmosphere. Just, I mean, it was already a professional organization, but from a player standpoint, just what he brought to all the other players, I think cannot be understated. So I was sad, but at the same time, just like moving Stu, you have to be able to move on, move forward. And even if those aren't the guys, I think it shows that they are willing to move guys if they think this is going to make the team better, which you have to be willing to do. And those are two very popular guys that they moved on from. So, but yeah.
Initial reaction was like, that sucks with the money. Like he got 15 million per season from San Antonio, if I remember correctly, right? Like, oof, yeah, that's probably too much for Tobias. But my thought now is like that 9 million for Kevin Herter sure did mess that up, didn't it?
So, and this, I don't think enough people talk about this though, is not just the money, but the role, because it's like you can't bring John Collins in and keep Tobias because somebody wants to start. You know what I mean? It's not like either one of those
Agree with
guys.
that. I disagree with that mainly because Tobias signed with the Spurs and they're not going to start him.
We'll find out, but I mean, because I think that's what it came down to was basically the, and what I read somewhere was Tobias wanted to have 2 years guaranteed, and the Pistons only wanted to do one, which I agree from the Pistons standpoint. Like I understand what they're doing. Like if because
You got to
when
give
I
those guarantees to Kevin Herter instead.
well that's again that's why that contract is a F minus that I have. What the hell are they doing? Like it makes no sense that you're going to turn down Tobias for $6 million more a year than what you gave Kevin. That's just that's absurd. Like
Who was the second most important player in the playoffs?
Tobias Harris. So, well, Asar Thompson, but then, but for scoring,
No,
it was
yeah,
Tobias.
no offense to Sar, but Sar could have done everything else, but without Tobias, especially the Orlando series, there's no
Oh,
way. And
that game seven.
yeah, I was gonna say it sucks for Tobias because I'm like he had the most amazing game 7 of his entire career, and that's how he was rewarded by the team he played for, right? How many Philadelphia fans poo-pooed all over this poor guy when he was there, and now like he stepped up to the plate, made a big difference on both sides of the court. And it's just like, yeah, that's a big thing for me. The more time has gone on it, I'm like 2 years, 15 million for Tobias. I know we were all like gung ho, but I got to move on from him. But now looking at the entirety of the moves and still waiting on Jalen Duren, and then factor in that Kevin Herter contract, and then they traded away Stu to get his money off. I'm like, again, what was the plan then? What was the plan? I don't get it. And I do think Tobias and Collins both are professional enough that they would be fine. And if everything goes awry with Duran, it's like, well, Tobias and Collins can play 4 and the 5 too. I know it's a weird lineup, and you're obviously not going to like roll with that long term and be like your go-to starting lineup. But it's at least mitigation, and it's at least something you could be able to put out there instead of what they have now, which is nothing. If Duran gets the boo-boo face and threatens qualifying offer or gets traded away or something else, right? They still have to find that center there. So um, all that rambling to say, I still think I probably would have let Tobias walk, but man, it's getting more and more difficult to swallow that pill, just with how important he was, and the fact that it's 6 million difference between Herder and Tobias. And you were talking about maybe Herder's like a locker room presence, stuff like that. It's like you don't think that's worth an extra 6 million from Tobias. That's just what it comes down to for me. And now I'm like, if it was just that, then pay Tobias.
And I think like for Collins when they signed him, I'll have to double check, but I think when Sham sent out his tweet that I think it said that like Collins is signing to be their starting power forward. Like I think it even said like starting.
Whatever,
And,
man. Shams' tweets are all fed from agents, so it's just like whatever.
but I think it is a matter of just like Tobias wasn't ready to move to the bench, and understandably so with that game seven. He's like, I,
Yeah,
I still got stuff left.
yeah. All right, let's move on to John Collins. The Pistons signed John Collins. Funky deal where only 1 year is guaranteed. I mean, it's good for the Pistons. They can get out of it whenever. I don't really want to hear the word flexibility, but that's part of it there. And just what was your initial reaction to John Collins first?
I like it. I think it's a very good signing. I think it gives them flexibility in terms of, I mean, let's say Duran ends up getting traded because he threatens the qualifying offer. At least we have a lob threat with Collins. He's a good role man for to finish lobs. So you, if we don't pick up a center who can do that, he's capable of doing that. He can also stretch the floor, which can give us more samples of like a five out type lineup where he's the five. And you mentioned it earlier when we talked about Isaiah Joe signing him and the shooters that we now have. It would nice to see lineups where Asar is the primary ball handler surrounded by a bunch of shooters. Just they have a lot of flexibility. So I really like this signing and I like the contract because it makes it easy for the team in terms of he's a really good fit. Great, we keep him for next year. He's not a great fit. You can move him because he's basically an expiring contract to whoever's getting him. So I like it.
Thoughts at all changed on it? What grade would you give it?
I would still give it an A. I'm happy with it. I mean, if you have to lose Tobias, I'm happy with this.
The one that's difficult for me because I don't dislike him. And again, watching all those different games, this is a guy that doesn't waste motions. I mean, he's been like 62, 63% true shooting pretty much like his entire career. I do also think too with our criticism of JB not having like player development, not forcing Asar and Ron to shoot from three. I do think if the player development is up to the players, their game development, then the mandate should be for John Collins to move in with Ron Holland and Asar to move in with John Collins immediately. This is a guy that took maybe like 4 threes, 14 threes. I mean, it was barely any threes in college. This was a dude who was back to the basket, just want to dunk everything. Like, I don't care about defense. I'm just all about buckets. And then came in the NBA and is a reliable 3-point shooter now. And is somebody who's more of a role player also after being like in this ball dominant low post scorer. Like, they need to get with him just to understand what did he do? How did he build out his 3-point shot? He's mainly a corner 3-point shooter. But again, Asar and Ron, if that's all they did, they're going to make a lot of money. It's going to help out so much with the team and just completely change the way. I mean, people are going to actually have to guard them now. So with John Collins, again, please, Asar and Ron just need to stay Velcro super glued to him at all times to understand what he went through to go from a non-shooter to an actual 3-point threat now that people have to guard. Um, Again, like I said with Isaiah Joe, this is a guy that does not dribble the ball. You can go like 3 or 4 games and he will not dribble more than twice. for like maybe even half the season. He was the one for sure that I was like, man, I don't know that I saw him dribble 3 times like once. This is just a guy that was happy to sit in the corner, shoot corner threes, be a pick and roll guy, get a lob threat. And if you look at his shot chart too, John Collins, there's nothing in the mid range. Thank God. It's all at the rim and it's all from three. Again, this is why this guy is like 60s true shooting percentage. I think Cade's going to love him. I think he's going to fit well with Asar. There could be a lineup where Asar is the 4 and a Collins is the 5. Like that would be a fun lineup to have and definitely change the way people have to guard. And again, the defense is probably going to be terrible, but even if they ran like a Cade, Joe, Duncan, Asar, Collins, like that's definitely a lineup that's going to get buckets and people are going to have problems with. The issue for me though is the number one, there's still no long-term Tobias replacement. That was the thing that we've been clamoring for a while. Is like, who's next up at the 4? What's your long-term solution at the 4? Sure, maybe John Collins is going to be here for 3 seasons, but the Pistons don't think so with that contract they signed. It's still only guaranteed 1 year. You just said it. If he doesn't work out, let's throw him out the door. So there's no long-term answer at the 4 still. There's no Tobias replacement. They didn't draft one either, so forget that, right? And the other thing is, we just said Tobias was the second most important player in the playoffs because he could create his own shot and get instant offense. That's not who Collins is anymore. Collins is not a shot creator. Again, he's a play finisher, roll man, lob threat, shooter from the corner, which is good and fine. And I think is going to help out Cade. But man, losing that from Tobias, I'm like, oof. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to really hurt the team in the regular season, but in the playoffs, yeah, absolutely. Especially now since we still don't know who the second option is, or if they even have a second scorer now to roll out there. And the bigger thing is defensively, Collins has never been a good defender, so they are going to miss that. And then it kind of snowballs, right? You throw out Isaiah Stewart, best rim protector in the league. You throw out Tobias Harris, had fantastic defense, especially when it mattered, like on Cat last year, on the guys in Orlando and on Mobley in Cleveland. So now he's gone. And who do you bring in? Oh, you bring in the 165-pound Isaiah Joe. Oh, you bring in the John Collins, who's not a good defender. Oh, you're going to rely more on Jalen Duren, who's terribly inconsistent, who sucked ass all playoff games long, especially on defense. It's just like, man, I like the player. I think offensively he's going to be fine, but I would give the grade now like a B minus because I do think it's a downgrade from Tobias. Defensively, like I don't want to hear it. Anybody that wants to argue with me about it, just go look up any numbers. Talk to Clipper fans, talk to Jazz fans, talk to Hawks fans. They'll all tell you like Collins just isn't a defender. He's never really shown the desire to do it. And that's the thing too. Maybe it turns around because it seems like everybody that's come on this team that's a veteran has been able to turn it around defensively. So maybe that ends up being the case with Collins too. And then the last thing is just the shot creation is like, I don't think they're going to be asking Collins to do that. He hasn't done that since maybe his Hawk days. So that's why it's a B minus for me. I like the player. I think it will help out with Cade and pulling people off him. I think Collins, like you said, flexibility. But I think what they lose with Tobias going out and what Tobias provided at that spot, I don't know, man. I just feel like that's a lot to lose.
I think the Pistons did not improve in terms of getting any secondary creators, and I really think that yeah they tried to get other people, but
We'll come
I
back to that. We'll come
I
back to that.
I really think it's a matter of if they're going to pay Asar and they're going to pay Duran, they're like, you guys have to be able to do that. If you can't do that, you're not worth the money that we're paying you. And I still think you have to bring someone else in, but I think it's important during the regular season for them to get those reps, even if they fail at it, of having that burden of you're going to be doing more of the creating for us. And at times it's going to look ugly. And no, you're not going to win 60 games. But in the long run, your team will be better. And I think that's where last year was a problem. That yeah, we won a bunch of games. We played vets probably more than we should have, and cut minutes out from developing younger guys to get wins. But I think we had too much of that last year and not enough development. So I can understand not getting the secondary creator who solves those problems because these guys have some growing they need to do.
Because I like Collins, and I think him and Joe will work well together alongside Cade. They could feel really good with Duncan, even if the defense is there. Both guys really help Asar. Also, that's the thing with the Collins and the Isaiah Joe move is, like I said, the most important question ought to be: does this help Cade Cunningham? How does this help Cade Cunningham? Spacing. And with Collins, it's pick and roll and lob threat. So it's like, okay, this is clearly yes, a win, but what you lose with Tobias again might bring it down a little bit. These last two, let's just kind of run through real quick because I do want to end with a more robust discussion of the Jalen Duren contract negotiations. So, second to last move the Pistons have made thus far this offseason is to trade away Marcus Sasser. All your thoughts on that?
Um, I'm happy for him. I mean, he deserves an opportunity somewhere. The guy can get buckets. I still don't feel like JB. Actually, I'm just becoming more and more determined that JB has his system. He's going to run it and eventually just get the players that fit it. And if you don't fit it, he's not going to adjust to making something that's going to work with your talents because Sasser could probably. I hope he does very well in Dallas. I hope he's actually someone that we look back at and we're like, why did we ever let him get away? Because he's doing all these things. And it's a matter of the coach never let him. The coach never gave him a chance, never gave him an opportunity, and he would rather play Karis LeVert. And it's like, hey, that's what the coach wanted. So I'm happy for him that he's not just rotting on the bench for no reason. It would have been nice to get something for him, but they're just adjusting this to what JB and Trajan want for their team. If you were a Troy Weaver guy and you haven't popped yet, your days are numbered.
Yeah, it sucks too because Sasser, like every time they gave him an opportunity, he like produced amazingly. So why that never manifested into giving him more minutes, like you said, it probably just runs down to JB being too stubborn and set in his ways. And like that's the mark. I don't care how many games he has. To me, that's the mark of a bad coach and a bad leader is when you're like, no, you have to do it my way. I only want this kind of player. I only want this kind of system. And you're just that, unflexible. You're just that rigid. Just never seems to work out. So Sasser, again, we hope you work out there. Like you said, it would have been nice to get something back for him. To me, this is like an F minus just because trading away a player for nothing, that's an F minus move. Last one is trade away Karis LeVert for Torian Prince and Gary Harris. Real quick, thoughts on that?
Very happy to see Karis LeVert traded. Nicely done. If I would have seen LeVert and Herder on the court at the same time, my head would have exploded. Um, I believe this was just done so that they could basically recycle their trade exception and start another one. So I'm happy for it. Torian Prince will actually be good in terms of a depth four. We needed another player who could play the four because JB likes to play Holland and Green at the four. But so overall, I got to grab my charger real quick. I'll be right back.
Oh, and he's getting the Charger. My thoughts on it are, yeah, Torian Prince I think would be a good fit. Probably somewhere in the second unit as the 3 and the 4. Can play both spots. A really good shooter from 3. Gary Harris, go green. Welcome back, Sparty here to Michigan. Probably going to be the end of the bench, 15th man, 13th man, somewhere in there. The Rodney Magruder slot, as I like to call it there. Really good vet that you want around. Very good worker, really good supportive teammate. So glad to see Gary Harris come back to Michigan. I do think he'll be a good addition to the team. And yes, thank God the Karis LeVert went at the door because when all else fails, JB was like, I gotta play Karis LeVert. When he had him in the playoffs, it was like, nope, Kevin Herter ain't here. Let's go back to Karis. So Marcus Sasser lighting up from 3. Nope, we got to bring Karis in here. That was just JB's guy. So Thank God he's out of here. Thank God his contract's out of here. Probably like B plus, A minus type of grade for me. I think Andy's back. Maybe not.
I'm kind of back. I'm plugged in, but it's not giving me power. Oh, I got power now. All right, very good.
Nice. There it is. So yeah, you want to close now on the Jalen Duren contract negotiations?
Um, I mean, I put a tweet out in the very beginning, and my opinion hasn't changed on it. That because he made the All NBA third team and he qualified for a huge contract, in his mind, he thought, I deserve that. I'm just as good as Cade or just as important as Cade to this team, and I deserve like the full ridiculous max, whatever it is, like 200 and whatever gajillion
I
dollars.
think it's like 257, 5 years, 4 years, something like that.
Something ridiculous. And the truth is, the Pistons don't even want to give him the max that he would have had before that, which was like 4 year or actually 5 years, like 237 million or something. Like they wouldn't even want to give him that. And no other team made the cap space to even offer him a 4 year, $177 million. So the Pistons are like, no, we're not. And the Pistons are right. You cannot build a contending roster paying your center that much money unless it's like Jokic. Then it's like, yeah, go ahead. But otherwise, you can't do it. And the problem is, Duran believes he's deserves that kind of money, and a couple of teams even planted some junk in his head by having meetings with him saying, "We think you're a max guy," yet they're going to go sign like Walker Kessler for like 32 million or something. It's like, yeah, they're not paying him $47 million a year either. It's like, and they chose other people, or they said, we think you're a max player, but they did absolutely nothing to create the space to sign you. So it's like, in reality, nobody thinks you're worth that money. Nobody created that, but the agent's telling you that's what you deserve. And now you're not going to sign what the Pistons are offering you. And for me, whether it is a trade because he wants to sign the qualifying offer, or if it's a trade at the trade deadline, or maybe next off season, I don't think he's going to be here long term because this is the sort of thing that puts cracks in a relationship that usually things go south. So, unfortunately, I'm actually on team trade Duran now, get the best offer you can, and move forward. But that's me.
Welcome to the team, Andy. I've only been here for like 2 years now, so welcome to the team. It- I want to say at the beginning, Jalen Duren wanting as much money as possible is not the problem. Every player should do that, right? Especially when you're put in these situations. Jalen Duren didn't vote himself in a third team on the NBA. He didn't do anything to get himself in this situation where he could get this offer. Any player that gets put in this situation, you ought to take advantage of it. That's not the
Just,
problem. So
I,
anything I'm
I,
going to say, it's not to diss on the guy for chasing money. That's not the problem. Go ahead, Andy.
One quick thing I will mention though is he did stink it up in the playoffs, which cost himself a ton of money. And if he can't see that, that's kind of on him.
Yeah, we'll kind of throw that out for a minute, but like putting yourself in this situation and having everything out again, if he wants that much money, of course he should want that much money. Like that's not the issue. This negotiation process to me is the stupidest negotiation process I've ever seen on both sides, from both the team side and the player side. We'll start on the player side. Andy kind of brought it up a little bit here as like, okay, you wanted like 50 million because now you're eligible for that 50 million max. Pistons say, no, we're not going to pay you that. But you can go see if anybody else does want to. You go out there, the Lakers was reported of like, hey, we see you as a max player. And then literally like 6 hours later, they sign Walker Kessler like 32 million. Like, wow, that makes you look stupid. The Kings reportedly have interest, but nobody like reported that they want to sign Duren for a max, right? They just said he's talking to the Kings, and then that was like it. And now it's coming out that he's mad at the Pistons and Chris Hayes is reporting that, right? Like the relationship is deteriorating. He doesn't want to come back to Detroit. And I'm like, bro, like you number one, you got played by both the Lakers and the Kings, because if those offers were there, it would have been out there and you would have been saying, hey, they want to sign me. And number two, like you got to live in reality, man. I know, again, you didn't put yourself in a situation where you're eligible for that. You're trying to take advantage of it. But if nobody is offering you what you're demanding, you got to come back to reality, man. Look at last season with Josh Giddey, aka Peter Turkolo. Like he remember was saying, I want like 30 million, I want whatever. And then he ended up signing for 25, like right before training camp started, because nobody wanted to pay him that with his issues and with his lack of shooting and maybe like not that good on defense either. Like he has to Duren has to look at that reality as well, because it's like the longer you hold out here, the less likely it's going to be that you're going to get paid anywhere close to what you want. And why it's really, 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 really stupid on Duren's end, he should just be threatening a qualifying offer now. Like that's really what it comes down to. If you really wanted to get all that money and that's the only thing you're looking at, that's all you got to say. Okay, I'm going to sign the qualifying offer then, because every team that's the kiss of death for them. Then there's nothing they can do. They can't trade you because once you're on the qualifying offer, you can't get traded. And then they have a player who like hates them for a whole freaking calendar year, who's going to sink them probably, or like play bonkers and go buck wild on a low paying thing, all for the reason to get paid and get out of where they're currently in. So why Dern hasn't done that is beyond stupid, because that's the next lever to pull if you want to get paid. Why it's stupider on the team end is like, okay, cool, you didn't want to pay him. That's great. You're saying you only want to pay him like somewhere between like 25, 35 is what they're reporting, right? Okay, cool. But now it's July 17th again. It's been like almost a month with these contract negotiations. But it's been longer than that. The season started, and what was the number Jalen Duren reported that he wanted even before the season started was 30 million. They said, no, we're not going to pay you 30 million. We'll let you play out the season and come back. To me, that should have been red flag number one, that he like, okay, this guy is asking for way more money. Maybe we should think about moving him. And again, the problem is not that he's asking for a lot of money. The problem is if you're the team and you're like, we don't want to pay this guy above X, Y, and Z, or we look at his production and don't want to make it, then that's on you. You should know, like, okay, we're trying to build a winner, and this guy is already overstepping his bounds of what we want. So that should have been red flag number one. And then fast forward to the end of the season, again, throw out all the playoff stuff for now, and you get to the beginning of negotiations, and he's like, I want my 50 million. Like that should have been it. That should have been the line in the sand of like, okay, he's not going to come down on this. We want to build a winner. This is not sustainable for being able to build out a full roster. Now let's go into sign the trains. Why in the world do you put out there, we're not entertaining any sign and trades for this? Like that like you said, it just makes it the relationship bad. And this is why we're getting reported that all Duren wants to do is get out of Detroit now. All you're doing is making him mad. All you're doing is making this relationship worse. And even if he does end up having a cave, this is why I say it's stupider on the player part, because Duren does gonna have to come back to reality if nobody comes out of the blue and wants to give him like 40 million or more. On the team side of things, like the longer this goes on, the longer you say you're not going to let him try and sign and trade somewhere else. Do you really want an unmotivated, pissed off, boo boo face Jalen Duren on your squad? Like that's really what you're waiting for? You think like, oh, he's going to be fine. We waited all this month and he's going to come back, and the team vibes are going to be all good together again after they traded away his brother too. Let's not forget about that. He and Stu have said time and time again, that's my brother. we're we're that close. Like I don't get it. I do not get it from either side. Again, during just threaten the qualifying offer, man. That's how you're going to get your money. And from the team side, it's like, why are you just being like, no, we're going to sign him. We're not going to trade him away. It's just going to make the relationship worse, and you're going to get nothing out of it. other than a pissed off Duren who just wants to get out of here. Like, well, I don't get it. I don't get either side of it.
So there's times when we already question like his motor, like how hungry he is to play. Do you how motivated do you think he'll be once he does get paid and he has all that money? Like is he still going to be like driven like they talk about guys in a contract year when they're like they know they're playing for like their big payday and they're like doing everything they can to be the best they can be. And sometimes guys get that big contract and it's like, Patrick Williams in Chicago, it's like they just never live up to the money that they were given. God, it's such a bad position to be in.
Yeah, I didn't want to bring that up because I'm like, if you're the Pistons and you had any inkling of that to begin with, then you should have traded him a long time ago. You know what I mean? If you were always worried that paying this guy is going to demotivate him, then you're an idiot for trying to keep him around.
Do you, what did you think of the package that the Jazz got?
For Walker Kessler, I
Yeah,
mean, it wasn't great. It was something though, right?
yeah. No, I would have taken it.
I mean, at this point though, this is where I mean, I just bring it up now. For me, the off season on July 17th here, entirety of the Pistons is an F minus. Like I don't care everything else. Even if I loved all the moves, like they drafted the perfect player, they kept Stu. They got guys I thought were better fit or somebody who's maybe more of a shot creator in free agency. I still would have given it an F minus for the Jalen Duren contract situation, how they've handled it so far. Or again, it's just like it just seems like you're just upsetting him more and wanting him to get out of here, trying to force his hand. And the bigger thing is we still don't have a second shot creator. There's still no secondary scorer here along the way. And meanwhile, you did trade away Stu, and meanwhile, you did sign this weird Kevin Herter deal. Like all these other things, none of it makes sense because the only thing that mattered, everybody said it. This team has to get another guy that can create his own shot, that is the actual section option, that can take pressure off of Cade Cunningham. They probably gave away the one guy that was still anywhere close to that. And then the other guy, Dennis Jenkins, who's anywhere close to it, it seems like they're trying to kick him out the door anyway. We do hold out hope for Sar being that guy, but just with what JB's done, like you said before, guys in a specific role do specific things. We haven't really seen players flourish and blossom and do other things. It's just hard to see that. So the thing with the Duren negotiation and with this too is like, why are you not utilizing this then to get a second scorer? Like the Jalen Duren swap that was discussed, that would have made perfect sense. I don't know if Boston would have wanted that because they probably don't want to pay Jalen Duren like a Jalen Brown, right? But it's like, why are you not doing that then? If you're so dead set on keeping Duren, you think he's that valuable, then why? That's why it's stupider on the team end. I'm like, okay, you're like, oh, we're not going to give him away. We're not going to trade him. I'm like, well, if he's that valuable, then why aren't you just freaking paying him, right? You obviously don't think he's that valuable. That's why you're not paying him. So just trade him away for something else that is valuable. And maybe that's the problem is they're not finding something that's that valuable. And the bigger problem might also be we just said it. Nobody's offering Jalen during that contract. So people that might want to trade for him are like, yeah, we want him, but we're not paying him 40 million. The Pistons did offer one max contract too, and that was to Austin Reeves, right? They forced the Lakers' hands because the Lakers tried to lowball Austin Reeves, and the Pistons offered, I think it was like 4 years, 180 million. Then it forced the Lakers to be like, oh, we actually have to negotiate things. And they didn't do that with Duren. Says a lot.
And that's the thing that says so much is it's like they would have paid that money. They would have paid that money for a different position, not the center position, for a center who does just what you do. Because unfortunately for him, he has to realize like different positions, different roles can get paid different amount of money based on what you're bringing to the table. And then, I mean, you can't base it all on the playoff performance, but you really think a team wants to give you a max offer if they're like, oh, but you might be a guy who doesn't show up in the playoffs, and basically in a couple of years we're going to have to try and move you anyway because we can't win a chip with you? Like, oh, yeah. Oh, you're muted.
Thanks. Duren and he aren't the same exact type of player. They do play the same position, but when I've thought about it a lot over this last month, I'm like, it's kind of like Al Jefferson, Big Al. Anybody that remembers Big Al, because Big Al was like a double machine, 20-point per game score easily. Like you just give him the ball in the low block, and man, he was going to get it every single night. There was nothing you could do to stop him. One of the best offensive centers in the last 20 years or whatever. And if you think I'm speaking hyperbole again, go look it up. But he sucked on defense. Like he did not care about defense. Only Charlotte ever really paid him. But Big Al produced everywhere he went. And I kind of feel like maybe we're in that same spot with Duren because Big Al was one of the poster children for why the center position changed and why guys like that stop getting paid because it's like, yeah, we know he can produce and score, but like he's not passing the ball, he's not making a difference on defense. So his actual contributions to the game is not that much because he's not making other guys around him better, and he's giving up so much on defense. So I feel like Duren's kind of at that point where it's like he may think, oh yeah, I produced all this, I got third team all NBA, but internally, and other NBA teams are like, yeah, but you're not making the guys around you better. Like your offense is so much dependent upon Cade and other guys passing you the ball. And like what else? So that's the thing you always say too. Like this contract, when you come out of your rookie, is we're not paying you now for what you are. We're paying you for what we think you're going to become. And I think that's a big issue with Duren for a lot of teams in the Pistons too. Is like what else can he become, right? People have talked about jump shot. People have talked about like, oh, a dribble game or whatever. But again, for the Pistons, we haven't seen JB let him do those things. I don't think JB is just gonna wake up and be like, oh, got paid 40 million. Now we're really gonna give him more usage and on-ball stuff. And I think for other teams too, they're like, well, even if we believed he had a shot or other things, we're gonna have to give him time to do these things. This is where the whole like I just keep hearing this like we can't let a 22-year-old in his prime center get away. And I'm like, oh, yeah, but if he has so much room to grow, then like how come we haven't seen it? And like that means you got to give him more juice and more time to do those things. And it's just not here in Detroit based off of what we've done. It's bizarre.
Yeah. And sometimes I wonder if like the team puts itself in this position because of what you just said, where it's like we can't be the front office that trades a 22-year-old third team All NBA center. Like we and it's like yeah, no, you can. And if you're a good organization like the Celtics, they traded Jalen Brown. Like, and I know some people are like horrible trade, blah 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 blah, but it's like they're making a bet that they can build a better team without him than with him. And it's funny because the Sixers are taking the opposite side of that bet, where they're basically like, "Oh, you guys are scared about having two giant salaries? We have a ton of giant salaries, and we won't be able to fill out the rest of our roster." But that's the bet they're going to make. But I think you're just going to see more and more teams, and I think Trajan is being um, too conservative just because he's like, okay, if we give Duren an extension and then we give Asar an extension, I need to have all this flexibility on how I'm going to be able to build out my roster to support them. And it's like, they're not even into I mean, Cade's on the big contract, but they're not into like two guys on that big contract. But yeah, moving on from Duren earlier would have been better, Steve.
Thank you for talking about being conservative. So crosses up on Threads said the Detroit Pistons reportedly explored trades for Kawhi Leonard, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and Trey Murphy this offseason. The asking price was too high, quote unquote, for Detroit, and they refused to jeopardize their future for a win now move. This is via Hunter Patterson in the Athletic article that got released recently, where they talked about the Stu and JB relationship with coaching staff deteriorating and things like that. These are the other things of like, oh well, they they looked at Kawhi, which I'll come back to in a minute, because what they're saying about the asking price being too high is a load of umpkus because of other things that came out. Kyrie, KD, Trey Murphy. Trey Murphy, we know now the Pelicans are like, oh, we're lowering our asking price. We don't want 4 first-round picks anymore. We only want 3, which is hilarious. Oh, Troy and Joe are just continuing to do the dumbest things possible. Trey Murphy, I'm sorry, bro. I hope you like New Orleans. That's all I gotta say. Because ain't nobody paying that price for Trey Murphy. And then the other ones, the KD and Kawhi, I'm like, the asking price being too high. You just won 60 games. Your only goal now should be NBA Finals. Like, when's the time, right? Well, if not now, then when? This whole thing of they don't want to jeopardize their future. The future's fucking right now, right? This isn't like it was 3 years ago where it's like, oh, we need to mid-draft, we need to do all these things. It's like, no, it's right now. You already know you have the guy. Maybe you have the 2 guys with Duren or with Cade and Sar, right? To build a whole team around now. And while I get it with KD and Kyrie because they're so much older, right? It's like you have maybe 2 seasons with these guys at most. So trading like multiple first round picks, sure, I get it. But at the same time, what we talked about, it was either the last time or before, is like there's so many teams every year. Now it's been the last 8 years. Every single season is a different champion because a New York Knicks trades 5 first round picks for Mikal Bridges, and Minnesota Timberwolves traded what was it, 3 or 4 first round picks for Rudy Gobert. These guys aren't exactly like the top tier of the NBA, but there are moves that they keep making, and the Knicks being the poster child for this now, where they traded all that stuff for Cat, they traded all that stuff for McHale, right? They traded all that stuff for OG. It's like the blueprint's there, man, right? The blueprint's there, even for a Indiana Pacers, right? They traded Pascal Siakam, traded all that stuff there. It's why I give it the F minus. I'm like, I think there's some move you have to make here. And if not now, then when? Again, 60 win team means you're ready to do it. And if you win 60 games and your big offseason now is like, Tobias, get out of here. Let's trade Stu away. John Collins, come on. Isaiah Joe, even though you're a defensive liability, forget having a second scorer and, oh, Jalen Duren, let's just make you more angry and probably have to trade you anyway. Like again, what future are we talking about here, man? You're saying like, oh, jeopardize our future. You're already jeopardizing your future right now with what you're doing. Why not add a big piece here? And then the Kawhi stuff, because the report came out much earlier than this one, saying Kawhi rejected an extension in Detroit. And again, that's probably for the better, seeing as how now magically, since he's traded away from LA, they're like, oh, we're going to suspend Kawhi and arrest him and all that stuff, right? It's like ridiculous. But this whole thing to me, if the report is true of like these asking prices are too high, I'm like, guys, again, look around the league. Boston didn't have a problem trading for Derek White. They didn't have a problem trading for Kristaps Porzingis, thinking that was too high. Even the Warriors, like the trading for Jimmy Butler thing and all that. I think the best teams now realize like, hey, we got to push chips in every season, and they figure out a way to reload. I mean, Minnesota just figured out a way to trade for freaking LaMelo Ball, right? I don't think that'll make the difference that they think it will, but at least it's something. And it was a push they needed to make because, again, they know we can get to the NBA Finals because we've gotten to the Western Conference a couple times. We just got to get further on. And meanwhile, stupid Pistons could barely scrape out of the first round only because of a Franz Wagner injury. And then they just got the roster and make Duren mad. And who knows, he might not even come back, right?
I'm much less pessimistic about this off season, even though we did nothing. You could say.
I was going to say how there is a very legitimate argument to be made that this team got worse.
I think they got better, but even
Jaylen
if we
Brown's
just
in Philadelphia, Jason Tatum's fully healthy, Giannis is in Miami. Like, come on, man.
no,
It doesn't, even if you think they got better, they're not better than those teams.
so my thing is, if they can run back a similar team, you have a competitive team. What happens during the season? We'll see which star becomes available, who gets injured, how do things change. You have to be willing to make moves and make adjustments. The one thing that I do think Trajan has that's holding him up is until the Duren thing gets taken care of and until you have the Asar extension taken care of, you have too many variables because it's like, what if you traded for Kevin Durant or someone else and then Duren's like, I'm doing the qualifying offer. And then you're like, damn it. Like, we just made these moves so that we have like these 2 years of like going for it. And this guy's not even, I just think once you get those two things taken care of, whether we sign Duren or we trade him, get the Asar extension taken care of, then I don't think you have any reason, if you're in the right position, that you have to make a move. Then I think it's time. I will say right now, I give him a pass just because he's got those variables in his way.
No faith in Trajan, mainly because the trade route seems to be the way to go. And like, what significant trades has this guy made? What have we seen from him that shows like he's going to make a major move and that he knows how to, play the trade market right?
So
What we
you're
got Dennis
telling me
Schroeder.
you're not impressed with Dennis Schroeder, Herder,
No, I'm more impressed with Kevin
Torian
Herter.
Prince?
Oh, yeah. And then even the ones we praise, like the Torian Prince and Gary Harris, I'm like, they're for salary purposes. They're for like end of the bench guys too. Like, come on, man. Isaiah Joe trade, cool.
Who else
But
did? Who didn't play for us
significant
that we got
difference makers.
excited about? Dario Saric. Didn't we get him?
Yeah. It's again, he has to be able to manipulate the trade market. I said it's for any Piston GM, but honestly, now it's like any modern GM. The best GMs know how to manipulate the trade market, and I just think if the Pistons are not going to have one of those guys, then forget it. Like I hate to say it, but Kate will be asking out before you can say I don't know, whatever.
How
It makes me sad to think, but yeah, all these other teams being able to be more proactive, and that's just what I want to end on with Trajan Langdon. He's all of these moves again are reactive. All of these things are reactive of like, well, we're just going to see how Duran reacts to this. We're just going to see how his contract situation plays. Or we're going to see what other teams have. Oh, we're going to see what Tobias has here. Oh, we're going to wait and see what to do with Asar next after the Duran thing. Oh, we're going to see who comes available in the free agent market. Oh, we're going to wait on trades and stuff like this. It's just like, what do you do? You got to be able to think 3 or 4 steps ahead. And this whole thing of, oh, the asking price is too high for our future. If you understood your future better, then I think that wouldn't be a issue, right? Again, it wasn't an issue for all these title teams who've been able to trade away multiple picks to get the guys on their rosters, or even the guys that made it to the finals, like the Suns with CP3 and Devin Booker, and the one I just brought up that I can't think of, the Pacers. Right, these teams all made the moves to be able to get there, and if they're not going to make any moves of significance like that, then I don't think the Pistons are going to be able to get there.
how how much worse do you think the Pistons would be this year if at center we had Sabonis or we had Miles Turner?
Honestly, I think Miles Turner might be an improvement only because what we saw with him from the Pacers and the fact that he's a better and more consistent defender than Duran and he can stretch the floor. Whether or not JB would allow him to play the way that he played in Indiana, right, is a bigger question, I think, is an issue. And the Sabonis one, I think it'd be kind of a wash because Asar and Sabonis seem like the perfect pairing. Sabonis is a fantastic playmaker, occasional shooter from three. It's just on defense. I think defensively, I think we would really get to see whether or not JB is a defensive savant or not, because then you have the Collins, Isaiah Joe, Duncan, and Sabonis. Like, oh my gosh, that's pretty bad. Um, but yeah, I don't think it really is going to be that big of an issue here. It's I would just say it's as much of a risk of the during getting paid and turning into Albert Hainsworth kind of thing, of just being complacent or whatever. I feel like that's as much of a risk as bringing in like a Sabonis or a Turner and thinking it's going to fall off a cliff.
Because I mean, and maybe I'm just completely nuts and out of my mind, but I'm like, you give me the right draft picks or whatever, and I'm fine moving forward with Sabonis or with Miles Turner or a different center. And then when the team is still as productive as they were with Duren, and you're like, wow, he really wasn't the engine that made like this thing click. And then you
Yeah.
have roster flexibility and you have picks, and you're like,
Yep.
because in the end, if you give me decent NBA players and I get to build something around Cade and Asar, I think I can make something work relatively easy. And I think making it work with Cade, Asar, and Duran is just a little bit harder. And maybe I'm just the one that's
Yeah.
like trying to find the easiest path to try and get to where I'm going.
No, I don't think you're the only one. Again, thinking about that game theory offseason preview for the Pistons, Sam brought that up, which is something we've been saying for a while. Like this is the offseason where they have to choose. Like it's either Duran or Sar. I don't think you can build a really, a successful deep playoff run of the finals roster with both of those guys as they currently stand, where neither of them shoot, right? And Asar doesn't really have to be guarded, and Duran has to get all this usage and stuff there too. So yeah, I understand there. I'm gonna say something that might make you mad. Um, I think they should just trade for KD. Figure out a way to get Duran out of here, trade him, and have that salary whatever match, so they can get KD. Because the reports are KD wants to play with Cade. We know those two get along very well. I honestly would trade Duran and 2 first-round picks for KD. I think you'll get 2 years for him. I would trade next year's pick and the year after. This whole thing about like, oh, we don't want to jeopardize our future. Like, how bad do you think you're going to be? Right? Like, where do you think your draft picks are going to end up? You won 60 games. Do you really think you're going to be worse, like significantly worse than that? That's the only reason why you don't want to trade those picks. Otherwise, you're talking about trading a pick that's like in the 20s. Like, you're not going to take 2 years of Kevin Durant for those things. Like, you're an idiot if you say no. Sorry, Andy, if you're going to say no.
The only thing for about KD, like the basketball court is amazing, but it's like how many places is he gonna go where it's just like toxic before you're like,
Yeah, but the thing with KD, you can always move him again. He's always got value, right? He's never not at value, right?
but 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 that's what everybody says before they bring him in and he blows up their shit.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. It would be a risk, but I think of like looking at the landscape, like 3 first-round picks for Trey Murphy. No,
No.
Kyrie. I don't know that. Like, I think he and Cade would work. Like, they're both really unselfish kind of guys, to be perfectly honest. And I think they would really find a way to work. But I think the KD one just makes more sense just because he's more committed. I mean, he's a freaking 7 foot guy that I mean, he's KD, right? I don't know why am I even defending this. He's KD. The mismatch is there. Who cares? Duran goes out there. Let's see if KD wants to play center, right? And then you just roll out these. Defense wouldn't even matter at that point, right? You got Cade and KD, and then you can throw Duncan and Isaiah Joe and John Collins, all these different dudes in there, and like who's keeping up with that scoring, right? At the very minimum, it'd be a very, very, very fun team to watch.
I mean, and this sounds like ridiculous, but in the end, you could trade anybody on this team besides Cade and you can build something.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? As much as
yeah.
I love Asar, but even for him, if it's like this guy is too difficult for us to build around because he's so special in his niche, but he has too many drawbacks. It's like in the end, what we always say, it's like, okay, how can we make things better around Cade? Because he's a legit number one option that can take us all the way. It's just how do you build around him? And that's where for the longest time, like I like Duran, but I'm like, if it's going to be too hard to build around you because of the money, like a year ago, I wasn't expecting him to be getting this kind of money. Like
50, like him expecting 50 million, right?
even at 30 million, I was like, oh, do I really want to give him 30? But now it's like, he wants more. Like, no, send him out. Like I'm not trying to build around that contract.
Yeah, yeah. The final thing for me, anyway, and then you can say whatever you want, Andy. think of all the guys that were available this offseason, right? I mean, Jalen freaking Brown became available. You got the Giannis. Just so many dudes, and Pistons are just not in the running for it. Either because those players didn't want to go, or again, they're like, oh, we don't want to pay that price. I'm like, come on, man. Like, they're always going to strike out. They're always going to be on the outside looking in if they continue to operate the way that they are. It just sucks to be at the end of, well, maybe not the end, but like pretty much the end of the off season. And you just said it a little bit ago, like, well, we'll just see who the next superstar that demands to get out is. Is like, is that just seems like it's always going to be the case if they're going to operate this way.
Yeah, I mean, there. For me, I just think if they can just keep shuffling chairs and still be like a 50 to 55 win team, and then you're just looking to find your Rasheed Wallace. You're looking to find that trade that is like that's the one that puts us over the top.
No, Andy, come on, looking for your Rasheed Wallace.
Say that again.
That they don't even have a Rip Hamilton talking about you're over here talking about Rasheed Wallace. Come on.
But I mean, like, if this team, let's say Duren signs, they run this team back, and they win 50-some games again, it's like they're one solid piece player away from like taking that leap. So for me, it's like I'm not in a rush to like make something fit. I guess that's where I'm at.
Nah, man. To me, this started back with Troy Weaver, and it gets to right now. Again, how many off seasons are we going to talk about this? Of like, well, we'll just hold on to these and wait. Right? And like I've said it so many times this podcast. You just won 60 games. If that's not your epiphany of like, oh, we are really good, we're a title team. If you don't believe that, then you should quit your job and somebody else should come in there because you have maybe the best point guard in the NBA in Cade Cunningham. You have defensive player of the year candidate with Asar, right? Like you have these mega building blocks. You just came off the best record you've had in a very long time. Now's the time, man. You're good enough to make it to the finals. You just got to find that extra thing.
I'm still okay.
Got anything else to say before we end?
Duren, make a decision. Whether it's the qualifying offer or signing a contract, let's go. Let's get this done.
Or Pistons make a decision, trade him away, do something. Somebody do something. This is, again, stupidest contract negotiation. They're on the qualifying offer, Duren, for crying out loud. Andy, let everybody know where they can find you before we get out of here.
You can find me on Twitter at D_D_Pistons_fan.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening to us. We'll catch you next time. These recordings are taking a little bit more time in between just because I've had a lot of stuff going on, helping family move up to Canada. I also did lose my job, so I've been trying to find a new job. So all these different life things. Hopefully be stabilized soon. But thank you for listening to us and tuning into us as always. Yeah, we really do appreciate everybody commenting and leaving likes and all those other things too. So we'll catch you next time. We want to